It's August the 2nd of 2010. We're in Washington, D.C. And the worst part of D.C. is an area known as the 7th Ward. The 7th Ward is high crime. It is violent. It is drug dealers.
All right, bye, Keisha.
Bye.
Bye.
Letitia Fraser, she's 18 years old. She's a fry cook in a McDonald's in the 7th Ward. Letitia's mother and her sister are waiting for Letitia to come home.
So it was planned that everybody would meet up, and she's supposed to be there, but she didn't show up. And we calling and calling, phone just going straight to voicemail. It was too many signs that just wasn't normal.
Developing in the district tonight.
Letitia Fraser disappeared.
After leaving her job at McDonald's.
Letitia Fraser went missing last summer.
Classified this as a critical missing person.
The fact that my little sister is missing is a stressful situation.
Police have not yet recovered a body.
That's what I feel, truthfully, that it's foul play.
Where is Letitia? No one seems to know. I spent my career closing murder cases. But I'm not the only one who answered the call. It takes a rare breed to solve the unsolvable, to catch a ruthless killer, to find justice for the dead. That's what it takes to be an American detective.
Jackie Middleton, Parker.
I joined the Metropolitan Police Department in October of 1986. It's every officer's desire to become a detective, the top tier. A homicide detective gets to investigate the most heinous crime there is. You get to hunt the beast.
Jackie Middleton is a great detective, and Jackie was great because of her rapport with people. She can calm people. She was passionate. She knew how to turn a switch off and on when it was needed, and she could be tough.
At the time, I had transferred from homicide and was working in the 7th District.
Middleton.
Jackie Middleton was a well-experienced missing persons investigator and a well-experienced homicide detective. She's summoned to the front lobby of the precinct building to meet Letitia's mother and her sister and the father.
You have kids.
Don't give me somebody to get help me.
Fill out the
paperwork first.
Our daughter is
Come on and help, man. Okay, look, I understand.
Hey,
we got you.
Hey.
So I spoke with the family, and they were complaining about Letitia being missing.
They are more than alarmed. They need help to find their loved one. And the most obvious place to look for the help is the police department.
Y'all come with me. Y'all come on to the back. I'll help you find your daughter. Y'all come on. Come on back.
And that was the beginning of the relationship between the Campbell Frasers and myself.
So we sat down and Jackie talked to us. She kind of calmed us down and, made us feel comfortable about them looking into our daughter's case.
First question we always ask is, has she ever ran away?
We say no, she never ran away, because that's not Tisha, Tisha always came home when she got off work and did what she had to do for Diamond and everything.
Who's Diamond?
Tisha's daughter.
I'm gonna get you.
Letitia left behind a daughter, Diamond, who was 3 at the time.
Oh, Diamond. Her and her mother was like a team. The only time she wasn't with her mother is when her mother was at work or school. But outside of that, they was together all the time, hooked to her hip.
When you're the mother of a small child, you come home to care for that child. If she's not home, it's because she can't come home. Nobody leaves a child behind. Nobody.
No, something's definitely happened.
Okay, listen, guys, we'll find her.
The concern is that she's not missing, but she's been harmed in some way.
I treated this case as if it was a murder from the very beginning.
Thank you.
We've got to proceed quickly to find out where this girl is. The longer she's missing, the more danger she's in.
And so, first thing that I thought we needed to do was speak to the last person who saw her.
So Middleton goes to the McDonald's, speaks to the manager.
You wanted to find out if she had any problems with anyone on the job. Were there any customers she was having issues with?
Letitia, she's one of my best employees.
They all like Letitia. They admire her for her willingness to advance herself.
She worked hard. Once she graduated high school, she wound up working for McDonald's, and also she was getting her culinary arts degree. She loved cooking, so I know being a chef was one of her things that she wanted to do eventually.
Did Letitia have any problems here last night?
Nothing I can think of.
Nothing that's out of the ordinary. One coworker sees her leave to go to the bus as is usual.
So we received information that she got on the P bus, which is the bus that she rode home all the time.
Detective Middleton, Metro PD.
So Middleton identifies the driver on duty that night.
Yeah, I just wonder, have you seen this girl?
Yeah, she rides this bus all the time.
Do you remember seeing her last night?
The bus driver says that she was with a man. Now, that's interesting. So who was this man? Middleton goes back to the family with the description provided by the bus driver, and the mother immediately says, oh, that's her boyfriend, Ryanell Mills, and that he rides the bus with her sometimes.
How's work?
They will always be together. They kind of like grew up together.
Something goes wrong between people that are romantically involved. It can be a very emotional and thus a very dangerous thing.
Historically, when you have cases like this, it's the boyfriend or the husband.
That's the first person you're going to look at. Probably 9.5 times out of 10, it is that person.
So Middleton finds her boyfriend. He's also very concerned because this is out of character for Letitia to not make contact.
I need you to tell me about the meetup with Letitia on the bus.
After work, she normally get on the bus with me, ride the bus every day.
Apparently, he had met her coming from work. She said she was going to meet some friends. She got off in the area of 22nd Street, and he continued to go home.
It is her custom to call him every night to say that she got home safely. But that night of August 2nd, she never called.
Are you willing to take a polygraph test?
Yes.
I am not the person that did the polygraph. The polygrapher views the case, and they ask questions about, when's the last time they saw them? Do you know what happened? Did you cause the disappearance? Things of those nature. There was no deception. There was nothing that raised the radar that this is our guy. We did verify this story, so things were lining up.
Can you think of anybody who may know where Letitia is?
Did you talk to Marcus?
Who's Marcus?
Diamond's daddy.
He is the biological father of Diamond. He thus becomes a suspect.
All right, somebody, Daddy.
Even if the father is not dating her at the time, there's going to be disputes because the child is involved. So as a detective, you most definitely want to first start there.
So Marcus, what have you been doing? Let's go ask him. Middleton's interview with Letitia's boyfriend yields the identity of someone else, the father of Letitia's child, Diamond. So Middleton needs to find Marcus and see what explanation he has for the disappearance of Letitia Frazier.
We went to his house and he was interviewed.
Marcus, so what was your relationship with Letitia like?
It was fine.
They were trying to co-parent. You know, they're children. They had this baby when they were like 15 and 16 years old, so they're doing the best they can.
Were y'all having any problems over Diamond or anything like that?
Nah, everything was cool.
He's very cooperative and willing to submit to any testing whatsoever.
We were able to get him to take a polygraph.
And he passed that with flying colors.
We talked to a lot of people. We couldn't find anybody to say that it was volatile or there was any issues or that he would have done anything to her.
So Middleton has no reason to believe that he has anything to do with her disappearance. Good for him.
So after we ruled out the obvious, we started looking to people that she trusted. Her boyfriend said she got off the bus, communicated that she was going to stop and see some friends. So naturally, we want to talk to these kids that she was supposed to be going to see.
Middleton has determined a group of friends exist. They listen to music, they play video games, they all like Letitia, they're all friendly with her. They are Brian Gaither, Johnny Sweet, and Lainey Bell.
Did you guys see Letitia the night she disappeared?
No, she never showed up.
And of course, nobody didn't see her. She never made it to the apartment.
So, Letitia, was she having any problems with anybody?
No, Letitia was cool with everybody.
She was never involved in, like, craziness. She loved to have fun, always kept a smile on her face. Like, even at a moment where she might be hurting, she's still smiling.
Everybody said that Letitia Frazier lit up a room.
She just smiled all the time, and you know, she was really friendly to people, and they gravitated to that.
Tisha had her stuff together, man.
Still makes sense.
Everybody painted her to be a very genuine, nice, caring, responsible young lady.
All Middleton has learned is how concerned everyone is, but nobody really has any knowledge. Letitia has vanished, and no one seems to know how that might have happened. In a case like this, what makes it even more difficult, you have a 4-year-old child who wants to know where her mother is, and you can't tell her. You'd love to be able to, but you cannot.
There's a lot of emotional things start going on within her. You want to help, but you really can't. But she's missing that void. I know that took a toll on her.
The longer it takes to find her, the less likely it becomes that she will be found unharmed. Someone has done something awful to Letitia Frazier.
So as we started interviewing people in the neighborhood.
Cameras in the neighborhood is very important.
Hey, guys.
Because you never know who may have seen something.
Just want to know if you've seen this girl.
In a neighborhood like the 7th Ward, the code of silence is a problem. Never tell the police anything.
The 7th District is probably the roughest area of D.C. It's where the most violent calls come from. Majority of your shootings, majority of your homicides.
There's always been a lot of violence in that particular community, and people don't talk to the police.
There is a concern of being retaliated against for cooperating with law enforcement.
You don't want to get involved with the police. You don't want to bring any light to yourself, so you just say you don't know.
So we started posting flyers in the area that she kind of frequently hung around.
We stood out on the streets passing flyers to people in their cars, people walking the street.
We was all over. We were just throwing them around, putting them up everywhere.
Flyers would tear off phone numbers to Crime Stoppers. Anonymous reporting of information. You can even get a reward, and no one's going to ask your name.
But very shortly after we started putting them up, people would snatch them down.
Every day we would post flyers and we'll come back the next day, they all would be gone. It didn't make sense to me.
Why would you pull down flyers of a missing person? Somebody's trying to find her. She has family, she has siblings, she has a mother, she has a father, she has a child.
So it was like, okay, what's up with this? Who is it that doesn't want us to figure this out?
So Carolyn, Letitia's mother, makes the decision it's time to get the press involved in this?
About a week or two after she went missing, that's when Sam Ford came in, the picture.
Letitia Frazier disappeared in August. DC Bureau Chief Sam Ford is live in Southeast Washington with that story. Sam.
Well, Gordon, we are on 18th and Trenton Place in Southeast Washington, where 18-year-old Letitia Monique Frazier disappeared.
Sam Ford, take one. Mark.
I'm Sam Ford. I'm the principal reporter for Stories in Washington, D.C. The family would call saying that this young girl had disappeared, so I thought, this is interesting. Let's go.
Sam Ford had came through and he was actually doing a news clip on us, and I mean, he's a really good guy.
Caroline Frazier, the missing woman's mother, was back at 7th Police District headquarters again today, joined by a host of family members and friends who desperately want to know where Letitia Frazier is.
I mean, I've been out there every day, like I said.
Caroline's going to prowl these streets with Sam Ford and a camera and see what they can learn that Middleton would never have access to because of the code of silence involving the police.
It was a lot of doors we knocked on and asked them, did they see Tisha out here and all that.
We got to know these people. We saw how serious they were. We felt for them, you know? They had the love for their child, and they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
While they continued to stay in the streets, we were trying to fish it out, trying to figure out who it was, but we just couldn't break anybody.
You know, we kept covering this story. And at one point, somebody started doing like ugly stuff on Facebook.
Not only do we have people tearing down the posters, now her sister LaToya is receiving threats via social media. They are awful threats.
Somebody made the Facebook page. It said Monique Frazier using her middle and last name when they started in with the threats until I had like a whole book of threats.
January 13th, 10:15 p.m. Your sister is dead and gone. I am watching you. One dead, more to go.
They was nasty. They called us everything in the book.
I'm gonna be honest, like I was terrified. Some of those messages was like horrific.
Her black has been gone. Keep the flyers out of the hood. We took them down.
The threat indicates that Letitia Frazier is already dead. It's clear to Middleton this is not a missing person, this is a homicide.
We were blown away. There's somebody who is saying that they know that she's deceased. So of course we want to interview that person. How do you know? What's your involvement?
So Middleton uses the IT services of the police department to recover the IP address of where these threats originated. They find the location where this IP is addressed.
We gear up, we go out to this address.
If their suspicions are correct, they may be finding a murderer there.
You've got to be kidding me.
We get there, it's a vacant lot. There's no house there where this address should have been.
They find nothing.
It's like somebody used an address that did not exist.
This is the curse of the internet. It gives everyone anonymity, the most dangerous of all things. Step out here in the sunlight, tell me your name and your mother's name, and then repeat what you were going to say a minute ago, and people won't do it.
And then after that, we continued to pass out flyers, try to interview people, but we came up with nothing.
This investigation has gone on for almost 6 months. There is hardly any hope that Letitia Frazier is alive and well.
I think after those months of passing out flyers, my mind at that point just went to mush because it's like I knew something had to happen.
All I could do was just close my eyes and really pray, because I couldn't do nothing else.
No one gets to play God. The family deserves to know what happened to their daughter. Every family does.
You had this wonderful person missing and nobody saying anything. You have to put your boots to the ground, as I say, lever to the pavement.
Hey, I'm just checking Middleton out here looking at the kids.
Talk to people. Eventually, you're gonna reach the heart of someone. Someone's heartstrings will be pulled. And they will tell you what you need to know.
In January of 2011, Caroline Frazier was still on local news, passing out missing person flyers for Letitia Frazier.
Middleton.
On every flyer, we put out call crime solvers with your tip.
Okay, hold on. What did they say exactly?
So someone called in and gave a tip.
They say they know what happened to Letitia Frazier, and further, they know who's responsible for it.
And everything just started falling together from that one call.
I need this girl down here right now.
One thing that is certain about murder cases, the truth finds a way of escaping. Despite Herculean efforts to prevent it, it still finds a way.
Middleton.
Middleton is contacted by an anonymous informant. They say they know what happened to Letitia Frazier.
We were able to track that person down and basically told them that, you know, it was important that you help.
Letitia's family need to know what happened to their daughter.
They couldn't give, you know, the whole spiel of what happened, but they could give us who was there. And I just couldn't believe who was involved.
I was shocked.
The informant says that Letitia Frazier was murdered by her own friends, Johnny Sweet, Brian Gaither, and Laney Bell. The very same friends who Middleton interviewed and put on a performance of no knowledge of the event.
I was in awe because these people were her friends.
I heard it was some more people there.
The informant said there were 3 other people that were present at the time, so a total of 6 people.
It's not common where you have a murder that is committed by 6 individuals.
What are the odds of that?
Thank you.
They had different degrees of culpability, but arrest warrants were obtained for all 6.
You needed a big team of detectives to bring them in, round them up.
When you plan an arrest like this, the first thing is surveillance. You got to put eyes on these people. You can't guess where they are. You have to know.
That them over there?
Mm-hmm. That's our boy.
The arrest teams fan out.
We got eyes on the suspect.
Okay, let's make our move.
Coordinated on a radio, and it's time to hit it. they apprehend everybody at the same moment.
Hands in the air, Johnny. Get on the ground. Up. Lay down.
Show me your hands! Police, down on the ground! Show me your hands! Down on the ground!
Get on the ground now.
Down on the ground! Now! Down on the ground! Get on the ground!
Everyone is marched out in handcuffs, placed in a police car, driven to an interrogation room where they are alone. There's zero opportunity to discuss what they're going to say with anyone other than the police.
So how you want to do this?
Middleton is taking a calculated risk by rounding these people up. They don't have a provable charge against anybody. They need somebody to run their mouth.
We're just gonna have to talk to them one at a time.
It only has to start with one. You break the surface tension of the glass, and the glass crumbles. The very same thing with humans. Break the surface tension, the lies fold.
All right, Johnny. I'm gonna need you to tell me what you know about what happened to Letitia Frazier.
I got nothing for you, man.
I told you guys I haven't seen her.
I never saw her the night she disappeared.
Many of the individuals at first said they had no idea what they were talking about, and they had this code of silence.
It was amazing that these young people were able to keep it quiet that long, because young people run their mouths all the time. I mean, all the time.
There's an old expression in law enforcement: a secret can be kept between three people if two of them are dead. Secrets don't stay secrets. No one can maintain their silence. People suffer from diarrhea of the mouth. They always have, and they always will.
When you have a group of people involved in a crime together, now it's about playing everyone against each other. So they're not used to the harsh interrogations, the games we play to get confessions.
Well, that's not what he told me over there.
What did he say?
Our job is to get information from the suspects. We're allowed to lie in order to get to the truth. So when I say we play people against each other, so now I can go to one and say, this person's told me this. This person told me that.
Whatever she's telling you is a lie. That's not how it happened.
Well, then tell me how it did happen.
These were, far and away, the best interrogations that I had ever seen in my career then, and still are some of the best that I've ever seen now.
It was almost like art. It was like a picture being drawn. I mean, it was just fantastic.
Mitch has a great way of talking and communicating with people, and have a great way of getting people to want to talk to him.
That's the one you need to crack right there.
Why you say that?
Because I know her.
I told them that this young lady, oddly enough, was a member of my church at that time.
Anika Nelson was her name.
Jackie was telling us how to use church to our advantage to get her to confess.
She's religious. She has a sense of right and wrong. Pursue that.
Listen, young lady, I don't know how involved you were exactly, but I do know that you were there. So, I know that this is tearing you up inside, but trust me, the truth will set you free.
She can't deal with this anymore. She has to tell them the truth. Okay, you have the floor. What happened?
Tisha came over to Johnny's apartment after she got out of work.
She comes over to say hello to her friends. There's a confrontation that immediately occurs. She is accused of stealing $900 in cash out of Johnny Sweet's apartment. She is then immediately assaulted.
We all started hitting on her, and things just got out of hand.
It started off with the girls assaulting her, and then the guys got involved.
Then they all started hitting her, started kicking her.
It's an absolutely savage attack, something beyond the pale.
She was moaning, so they put a sock in her mouth.
They put duct tape over her mouth. They put a pillowcase over her head and place it in a closet. You leave her there. I mean, how's she gonna breathe?
What happened to Letitia's body?
I don't know. They got rid of the body somehow.
There's no body, so now we have to prove that person we're talking about is the person that was there.
It's very important to find physical evidence.
We need to find something, like blood, like part of Letitia Frazier. It's critical to the case, absolutely critical. So Middleton takes the CSI crew with her to Johnny Sweet's apartment, and they go over this apartment with a fine-tooth comb.
If you don't clean up properly, there's always going to be evidence left behind.
They sprayed a chemical all throughout the bathroom to be able to see if they could find any traces of organic material.
Hit the lights.
But they couldn't locate any. There was evidence that the defendants had used bleach to clean up, and bleach ordinarily will destroy forensic material. So we thought that our chances of being able to find something was very slim.
What about in here?
Nothing.
The floor, looking at it, has been cleaned thoroughly with something. The difficulty is blood has a tendency to seep. It seeps between floor cracks, between wallboard and the floor.
All right, well, cut up the floor.
It was a big production. I remember that the evidence technicians had to have someone bring a circular saw to literally saw a hole in the floor so that we could try to use it for forensic testing.
So if there was blood in this closet, they're going to find it?
When you have concrete evidence to say, yes, it was her, she was here, it's almost like the smoking gun.
After 6 months of effort, now we are 2 inches away from putting these people in prison, but we have to get those last 2 inches. We must, or nobody's going to jail. Well, this is a 6-month investigation involving some very unpleasant people who've already lied to the police a number of times, and now one of them confesses.
Anika Nelson, she came forward and told the police what she knew about what had happened that day.
But there has to be evidence in support of your confession, which in this case is traces of Letitia Frazier in that closet. The forensic search is everything to this case.
Heard back from forensics.
Well, I'll be damned.
Middleton is thrilled to discover that the CSI team has recovered human blood from the closet under the floor.
So you need to do a comparison to see if this blood is related to Letitia Frazier. Well, how do you do that if Letitia Frazier isn't here any longer?
So Middleton goes to the apartment where she lived to recover some of her personal things to get a DNA sample from her toothbrush, her hairbrush, or any other device.
We moved, so we had to get rid of that kind of stuff.
There is nothing remaining that belonged to Letitia Frazier that might have some DNA sample on it. But that doesn't mean you're out of luck.
There may be another way.
You can take DNA from a family member to see if there was a match with the DNA recovered.
So they were going to swab us for the DNA.
At the time, in 2010, I had not heard of using the parental links in a no-body case to try to establish the existence of a homicide. This was one of the first times where that had happened.
So a chief swab is taken from the mother, one from the father. When that goes through the laboratory and comes back, it is in fact a match. The blood in the closet is the blood of Letitia Frazier. That is no question.
I already knew that something happened to her, but to get the confirmation that she's actually gone, like, my heart could have dropped to my feet. Like, my sister's gone. How do you get another little sister? That doesn't happen, you know? So it kind of tore me up a lot.
When Middleton first talks to these three people, Bell, Sweet, and Gaither, she knows little or nothing about this case. Now we have a different circumstance.
We had a sense of what happened. Now we had to corroborate that. So the detectives then go to Brian Gaither. He was a little bit of the leader of the group.
I don't know, man. I don't know what happened to that girl.
They all think they're smart. They're going to talk their way out of this. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're talking to an experienced homicide detective, not some guy on a city bus. And they're going to pick at you until you start to bleed. Then we're going to see how smart you are.
We know Letitia died inside of Johnny's apartment. And we know that you put her in the closet.
When you hit people with facts, you can't refute the facts.
I believe the more they realized that we had information, that's what helped make them start cracking.
Look, man, she wasn't supposed to die or nothing.
Brian Gaither realizes there's no way out of this for him, and he confesses his involvement and tells the story as to what happened.
Johnny said Tisha owed him $900, so he had to teach her a lesson.
So the plan was for Johnny Sweet to get her over there, and he had some young ladies who was part of their little crew who were going to beat her up.
They invite her over to the apartment, which is not uncommon.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I got some fries if anyone's hungry. Why y'all slamming doors?
And before anything can be said, an assault begins with Letitia Frazier as the focus.
And it just went out of control.
It's like watching a group of jackals attack an animal in the wild. The pack mentality. It's frightening. Humans can be extremely frightening.
What did you do?
I put her in a sleep hold.
Gaither picks her up with his forearm under her chin, where you restrict the airway until the person passes out. He then tapes a sheet over her head and puts her in a closet. They go check on her a little while later and discover that she's dead.
So now they have a dead body in the closet.
Now they're in panic mode. What are we going to do?
We put her in the bathtub.
The bathtub? Why?
Because we were supposed to cut her up.
Johnny Sweet suggests that they dismember her body so it can be disposed of. He attempts to do this with a kitchen knife. Neither of these people understand how difficult that is.
It just becomes a disaster. They can't dismember her, so they put her in a tub, like a storage tub, and place her in the closet.
So now we have to get rid of the body.
We put her body in a dumpster.
The dumpster?
It's just so heartless.
Oh, wow. I was shocked that these young people just say, let's just throw her body in the dumpster. That was just coldness.
It was cruel the way they did her. Nobody deserves that, but especially not this young lady.
Now, Middleton is faced with trying to recover her remains.
We learned that the trash from that dumpster led us to a landfill down in Southern Virginia.
Now, it's been in this landfill for over 6 months, which means it's buried under hundreds of feet of garbage. Hundreds of feet. The most dangerous thing about a landfill is it produces methane gas.
The specialist said that, given the dangers, they ultimately would not engage in the landfill excavation.
The Frasers and Campbells did not get the proper burial for their daughter.
That was outrageous. It wasn't fair to none of us.
I don't feel like nobody deserved to have to lay to rest in a trash landfill. Like, that's just...
Developing in the district tonight, a guilty plea from the man accused of killing teenager Letitia Frazier.
Prosecutors said they had planned to use ABC7 news clips against 25-year-old Brian Gaither. We shot this video as we followed the victim's family leafleting the neighborhood where she disappeared in August 2010. Gaither put his arm around Frazier's mother, offered to let her search this apartment, where he now confesses he and 5 others attacked Frazier and choked her to death.
We believe that she was in that room when the mom was actually in the unit looking for her.
But I didn't know it, and I didn't smell nothing, so I figured, like, you know, she ain't here.
That's the part that's just sickening to me, truthfully. That's just crazy.
He actually hugged my mom and said, "Ma, you know, if I knew where your daughter was, you know I'd let you know." So for me, I'm just like, what type of people are you?
Of all of the cases that I have seen come through the homicide section, this was one of the most tragic. The trial of Johnny Sweet, he was the only person who actually went to trial. I remember it was particularly difficult because this was the first time that the family heard everything. We had shared a lot of information with them, but they had never seen the whole picture put together for them. And it wasn't until that trial that they had seen everything. And I know that was particularly difficult.
I remember one day I went to court and I was actually walking in the building, and I normally would take the escalators, but today I just decided to get on the elevator. So I got on the elevator and the elevator stopped like a level up, and this guy got on like all these boxes and stuff, and it just like, it smelled like death. And I'll never forget, he got off on the same floor as me and we walked into the same courtroom. And my heart like to drop because I knew that was like what was left and what was last of when my sister was gone.
Johnny Sweet maintained his silence, refused to make a statement. He was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Mr. Gaither was also sentenced to life in prison. Lainey Bell. She was sentenced to 3 years because she was not physically involved in the event itself.
The rest of the defendants had different degrees of culpability, and Anika Nelsa being the least, and Kamal Hassan and Cynthia Proctor being somewhere in the middle. They received between 18 and 52 years, depending on their culpability.
I mean, I was glad that they caught somebody, but they can never serve a sentence enough that I would feel is justice for us losing her life.
I mean, she was a young lady, a kid, pretty much. She's 18 years old, and she was doing the best that she could. And at the end of the day, she lost her life over nothing.
Did $900 even exist? Probably not.
There was absolutely no evidence ever that she had stolen the money. In fact, she was the only one out of all of them who had a job.
I didn't believe that one bit, because I know my daughter. So if she working every day, she don't need to steal from nobody.
So what is the motive for this crime? Rage, anger, jealousy, something was said they didn't like. Who knows?
I really wish that everything happened differently. I wish she was still here. You know, they took her away from so many people. I'm grateful to have my niece. Like, she's so beautiful and they look like twins. Like, she gonna grow up and look just like her mom, so I'm grateful for that.
Miss her being here, miss her smiling. I think about her every day.
We still celebrate her life every year. And, you know, she's not forgotten. You know, she won't be ever. You know.
Detective Middleton was emotional when I spoke with her about this case because you get that way. There are certain cases that just never actually go away, that will always be with her. It's just the way it is. It is the most difficult part of police work.
Lana Walsh. She is 12 years his junior, a dedicated nurse who grew up in the quiet heartland of Oklahoma. When the family finally meets her, she strikes them as being very sweet. She is very quiet, but her sweetness is apparent. This quiet nature stands out sharply to everyone, primarily because Steve is not quiet in the slightest. Steve's personality is gigantic, capable of filling any room he enters. Lana, by contrast, is described by some as being more like a wallflower. Despite their obvious differences in energy and demeanor, Steve is absolutely certain she is the one he has been waiting for. The two are very affectionate with each other, constantly seen walking arm in arm. Steve is always hugging her, squeezing her, and kissing her forehead. His sister Rosie feels immensely happy for her brother. She knows that anybody her brother loves, she is going naturally to embrace and welcome into the family fold. It is not very long before Steve asks Lana to move in with him. After they spend time getting to know each other quite a bit more, Steve persuades her to pack her bags and come to Charlotte. As his family knows well, Steve can be a very convincing man when he sets his heart on something. As they build their life together, they add some delightful new additions to their growing family. The first dog that Steve and Lana get is named Guinness, an elegant and playful Italian greyhound. They fall so deeply in love with the breed that they soon decide they want another one. They welcome a second dog into their home, naming her Sadie. With Lana by his side, Steve finally feels that he has found his long-lost missing piece. He always has incredibly great things to say about her, fondly referring to her as his Lana Sue. He simply cannot hide the deep feelings he has for her. It is obvious to anyone who looks at them that he is very much in love. The family feels that Steve has found himself well grounded with Lana. They observe a certain, beautiful sense of peace settling over him. Steve Clayton had originally come to North Carolina, seeking a change from his old life. And in doing so, he found a whole new, bright future. When Steve danced with his sister at her wedding all those years ago, he dreamed of finding his own special someone. Now, 6 years later, he is finally about to marry the true love of his life, a dedicated nurse named Lana Walsh. Chapter 3, The Forever Home. It is a lovely, crisp day in November 2013. Many family members and close friends have traveled all the way to North Carolina just to be there and share the joy of that day with him. As always, Steve goes out his way to make it a very special experience for everyone involved. Lana and Steve's wedding takes place right at their beautiful house in Charlotte. It is a stunning and intimate event. Guests can plainly see the love beaming from both of them. It is a picture of domestic bliss and romantic triumph. Soon after exchanging their vows, the newly married couple decides to relocate and move into what they believe will be their forever home. They find a breathtaking property just over the border in South Carolina, situated peacefully on the scenic banks of Lake Wylie. Visitors often remark that it looks exactly like something printed on a glossy postcard. It is a gorgeous, ocean blue home sitting gracefully on a sprawling piece of pristine lakefront property. It is by all accounts very lovely. The couple immediately sets about refurbishing their new home, pouring their shared vision into every room. They decorate it with Steve's extensive and treasured collection of artworks and antiques. Steve has always been the kind of person for whom objects are deeply personal. He is very proud of his possessions, knowing the story behind each one. To him, They are all uniquely special in some way, representing memories and milestones of a life well lived. The move to Lake Wiley allows the couple to fully indulge in their shared love of nature. If there's ever something fun and outdoors to do, Steve is always going to be the first one there. He is endlessly gung-ho about exploring the trails, breathing the fresh air, and enjoying the water. Their relocation to South Carolina also happily means the pair are located much closer to Steve's extended family. One particular family member, Nick French, who married Steve's niece in 2010, officially became his nephew. Nick and his wife spent a lot of time hanging out with Steve and Lana after they move up to the area. They frequently go out to dinner together, attend exciting concerts, and gather for special events during every holiday season. They are also just a quick 30-minute drive from Lana's son and her precious grandchildren. The pair absolutely never say no to a bit of babysitting. Steve has an incredibly natural way with children because he has always been a child at heart. He is exactly the kind of guy who gets right down on the floor to play. He sings songs like Pop Goes a Weasel and makes funny faces, ensuring there is never a dull moment in the Clayton household when the kids are around. In one cherished home video, Lana happily filmed Steve attempting to excitedly describe how to do the limbo while her young twin granddaughters watch in amusement. He explains that there is a stick and he has to go under it, getting real low. He playfully insists it is a game and a dance, demanding they tell him how to act it out. Lana is highly tickled by his antics, even though the little twins seem far more interested in eating their sweet ice cream. Steve thoroughly enjoys playing all kinds of games, whether it is a strategic round of Scrabble or even a silly, messy child's game. In another video, he teases the kids, asking if they want to get in trouble. He follows their instructions to spin a colorful spinner, turn the plastic handles many times, and put his chin on the designated spot. The family counts down the letters, and Steve braces himself for a whipped cream pie to the face. He is described as a huge teddy bear, and the children absolutely love to play with him, always happily hanging on his arms and shoulders. Lana is always game for some fun, too, cheering and laughing as the toy activates. 5 wonderful years into their marriage, Steve and Lana appear to the world to be completely thriving. They have built a life filled with laughter, family, beautiful surroundings, and immense love. Chapter 4, A Sudden Shadow. Life on the lake is idyllic until the warm summer of 2018. In June of that year, Steve suddenly falls mysteriously ill. He tells his family that he feels terribly dizzy, complaining of severe vertigo. He mentions that his ear hurts and that he feels deeply nauseous. It escalates to the point where he starts getting sick right out in the yard. His loved ones feel very bad for him, knowing that he had previously dealt with minor issues regarding vertigo prior to this intense episode. Steve reports that he had been very ill and did not know exactly what was wrong with his body. He just recalls that he was working happily out in the garden when he started to feel a little dizzy, accompanied by a sharp headache. He initially thought that perhaps he had simply gotten a touch of sunstroke from working too hard under the bright sun. As a trained medical professional, a nurse, Lana strongly believes the best thing for Steve is immediate bed rest. Steve later tells his family that he remembered laying down in his bed, and the next time he opened his eyes, a staggering 36 hours had unexpectedly passed. Highly worried about this bizarre development, Rosie immediately calls Lana on the telephone to see if she can explain Steve's mystery illness. Rosie asks her what she thinks is going on, noting that it is very odd for any healthy person of any age to completely lose 36 hours of time. Lana calmly reassures her, saying that he is fine, that she is closely watching him, and that she is making absolutely sure he is okay. Although he has never been quite this ill before, Lana suggests that Steve is likely just physically exhausted. Hearing this from a medical professional, Rosie feels deeply reassured that Lana is there to properly take care of him in any way that she can, especially relying on her extensive knowledge as a nurse. It simply seems that Steve's larger-than-life energy is finally starting to catch up with him, forcing him to rest. Just 2 short weeks later, it happily appears that Lana's prescribed treatment of rest has worked wonders. Steve is completely back to his old, vibrant self. He proves his recovery by throwing a massive, joyous party to celebrate the 4th of July. Friends and family who attend note that the party is just as great as every other spectacular party they had ever been to at the lake house. Steve acts like his normal, affectionate, energetic self, and everybody has a truly great time. During the celebration, someone captures a beautiful video of Steve dancing with Lana. They are celebrating in high style. He grabs Lana right away, pulling her close, and the rest of the guests happily follow suit, all joining in the dance, watching them hug and kiss, surrounded by friends and music. It is overwhelmingly clear that they are completely in love. Things are undeniably good at the Clayton home. Absolutely no one looking at them that sunny afternoon has any doubts that Lana and Steve's lives are going to be happy, healthy, and wonderfully long. Chapter 5, The Fall. However, the joyful summer takes an unimaginable turn. On the morning of July 21st, 2018, a distress call comes into the York County 911 dispatch center. Police units are immediately dispatched and quickly arrive on the scene. Body camera footage recorded by the responding officer, Sergeant Day, vividly captures the heartbreaking reality of what they find upon entering the home. As the officers walk into the grand front door, there is Steve, lying motionless right at the very bottom of the home's grand, sweeping staircase. Tragically, it is immediately apparent that at that point, he is already gone. He is dead. On the video, the officers can be heard whispering and talking in very low, respectful voices. The reason for their hushed tones is that Lana Clayton is sitting just around the corner in the living room, visibly distraught and crying heavily. The officers are sensitive to the situation and do not want to say anything loud that might be further disturbing to a grieving widow. Sergeant Day knows he needs to speak gently with Steve's wife to find out exactly what has transpired. He introduces himself politely, stating, "Ma'am, I am Sergeant Day. I am going to be here for just a little while until the coroner gets here and transports things." Lana replies quietly, and when offered seat or comfort, she politely declines, mentioning she prefers to stand if it does not make the officers uncomfortable. Lana explains to Sergeant Day that Steve had been suffering from terrible dizziness for the past 2 days. She states that Stephen had been very ill with a severe bout of vertigo. She recounts that she had found him earlier that Thursday morning. According to her narrative, he had stood up, gotten intensely dizzy, and collapsed. She explains that she had to help him all the way upstairs to bed, and since that specific time, he had not been back downstairs. When Sergeant Day asks if she was outside working when the fatal moment occurred, Lana confirms. She says, "I was mowing the lawn real quick, and when I came in, I found him. I am so sorry. I tried to put a blanket underneath him, but I could not." Despite her extensive medical training, Lana explains she was unable to render any effective aid to Steve upon finding him. She conveys a sense of panic, claiming she knew she could not do anything further to help him medically. Therefore, she immediately ran outside when she heard a passing motorcycle, frantically waving the driver down to instruct them to call 911. Meanwhile, Steve's nephew, Nick French, is actually on duty working as a police officer in another jurisdiction when he receives the devastating news. His mother calls him, her voice breaking, and she simply says, "Uncle Steve died." Nick is struck with instant disbelief. He knows the call is real, but the magnitude of the words does not truly sink into his mind. He immediately drops what he is doing and drives down the house as quickly as he possibly can. The entire drive there, his mind races with 2 agonizing questions. How and why? Far away, Rosie receives a similar phone call. She sees that it is her nephew calling. When she answers, he repeats the tragic phrase, "Uncle Steve died, Uncle Steve died." To Rosie, the news is simply not possible. It cannot be true. How could her vibrant, strong brother be gone? She absolutely cannot believe it. With Rosie situated over 700 miles away, Nick and his local family members rush to rally around Lana to offer their support. Nick feels awful because he knows how deeply she loved Uncle Steve. He keeps thinking to himself that while he is terribly upset, he cannot even begin to imagine the profound trauma she must be going through, finding her beloved husband lying on the ground in such a manner. Lana repeatedly expresses her fear that Steve's ongoing vertigo could have easily caused a tragic fall down the steep stairs. She keeps repeating to the family and officers, "I think he fell down the stairs, and that is horrible, and I hope he did not suffer." As part of standard procedure, Sergeant Day carefully checks the immediate area in the body for any signs that Steve may have been attacked. The scene initially looks like it was probably a natural death, but as a seasoned officer knows, you never truly know until you check. Sergeant Day proceeds to walk up the grand staircase to look closely at the upper floors to see if there are any clues about what happened. Walking to the large, quiet labyrinth of an unfamiliar house is a slightly unnerving task, as one never knows what could be waiting around the corner. However, upon inspection, the officer can tell that there absolutely does not appear to be any sign of a physical struggle. There are no signs of someone else having been up there or having done something violent to him. There is nothing significant out of place in the hallways. In the master bedroom, the bed sheet is all rumpled up, which is typical of someone resting, but there is absolutely nothing to suggest Steve had engaged in any kind of fight. It strongly looks as if the cause of death will not be a complicated mystery for the medical professionals. When the coroner arrives and examines the body, she cannot see any contusions, scrapes, or bruises that would suggest Steve forcefully fell or tumbled down the wooden staircase. It appears, rather peacefully, as though Steve simply made it to the bottom of the stairs under his own power and then suddenly collapsed. The coroner offers her initial professional opinion, stating, "I believe he had a fatal heart attack." When an officer asks what specific signs lead her to that conclusion, she explains that the coloration of his face points in that direction. There is a distinct blueness that stretches across the top of his chest, almost forming a line, which, according to her extensive experience, is often a very strong indication that a person has suffered a massive cardiac event. Back downstairs in the living room, Sergeant Day gently shares with Lana what the officials currently think has happened. He explains that when he walked to the top of the stairs, he noticed the carpet had a directional wear to it, allowing him to see undisturbed footprints. He reassures her, saying he believes Steve came to the bottom of the staircase safely. He advises her, "Do not dwell on the staircase, because I know that is a hard claim to make. I do not know how he made it down. I do not know what he was thinking. But I think this was the day God chose. That is what I told him." Chapter 6, Gathering Doubts. While Lana quietly digests the tragic news and the coroner transports Steve's body away, Nick and his family stay behind to help with cleaning up the house. They want to make the large home feel comfortable enough for her to sleep in, knowing she is going to be completely exhausted emotionally and physically. She has to spend a lonely night there, and they want to ease her burden. However, when they go upstairs to begin tidying the master bedroom, they are immediately shocked by what they discover. Upon entering the room, they instantly notice a terrible smell. It is an overwhelming odor of human filth, smelling strongly of excrement and urine. As they look around the room to find the source, they pull back the rumpled covers on the bed. There, in the very middle of the mattress, are huge, deeply stained urine discoloration spots. This heavily soiled mattress instantly raises serious, alarming questions in Nick's mind. He thinks about the sheer amount of liquid it would take to soak so deeply through such a thick mattress. Logically, it means Steve had been lying there going to the bathroom in his own bed for several days without moving. The family immediately decides they must get this ruined mattress out of the room for Lana's sake. When they try to lift it, they can barely pick it up. It is extremely heavy due to being completely saturated. Struggling together, they manage to carry the mattress out and toss it entirely out of the house. When Rosie finally manages to talk with Lana on the telephone later that evening, she gently asks her how Steve managed to get so incredibly ill without anyone knowing. Rosie asks, "What happened?" Lana replies calmly that he had not been feeling well for a few days. Rosie, confused, asks, "Well, why did you not call somebody? Why did you not let somebody know?" Lana answers defensively, saying, "Well, he was just starting to feel better." Lana also mentions that Steve never called anyone himself because he had been sleeping very heavily and had completely misplaced his personal cell phone a full week earlier. She claims that the device had been missing for several days. This detail strikes Rosie as completely absurd. Her brother was a man who was never, ever without his phone. He was always tethered to his business, his friends, and his family. The phone went absolutely everywhere with him. It is at that precise moment during a phone call that Rosie first feels a cold chill of realization. She feels strongly that something very sinister is going on behind the scenes, even if she does not yet know exactly what it is. Adding to her growing unease, Rosie asked the grieving widow about Steve's last will and testament. Steve and Rosie had talked many times over the years about exactly what it was that he wanted to do. When his time eventually came, he had explicitly stated his desire to be buried in a beautiful, specific cemetery down in Fort Lauderdale, close to his roots. However, when Rosie asked Lana about executing these wishes, Lana plainly states that there is absolutely no will. Furthermore, Lana reveals she has already made all the final arrangements herself. She has decided that Steve is due to be cremated immediately, completely bypassing his known burial wishes, and she is already planning his memorial service at the house. On August 4th, 2018, Lana holds a memorial service for Steve at their Lake Wiley home. The atmosphere is highly emotional and incredibly heavy. Everybody in attendance feels such a deep, profound connection to Steve. It is remarkably hard for anyone to stay calm. Even though the gathering is officially supposed to be a joyous celebration of his vibrant life, no one can help but feel the deep, deep sorrow radiating from every corner of the room. Speakers remind the crowd that if there is any space where it is perfectly okay to be sad and to cry, a little bit, this is that time. They try to celebrate a life well lived while simultaneously acknowledging their immense grief. Yet, during this memorial, Rosie and the rest of the extended family are stunned to discover something else. They find that Lana has already started to completely clear out all of Steve's personal belongings. She has already begun taking all of his fine clothes and personal items out of the home. She tells him she has donated everything to the Veterans Affairs charity. Rosie is almost knocked off her feet when she walks into the master suite and sees the sheer number of empty hangers dangling silently in the large closet. There is not a single stitch of Steve's clothing left. Additionally, a lot of his expensive watches are suddenly missing, along with various pieces of fine jewelry. Most shockingly, his gold wedding ring is also nowhere to be found. Lana's firm claims about a wealthy, retired businessman like Steve not having will raises further severe suspicions. Meticulous financial planning is a topic that Steve, Rosie, and many other business associates had discussed at length. They all knew how important it was to Steve to make absolutely sure that everything was in perfect order. There is absolutely no logic in believing that her brother, a man with a mind like an accountant, a person who was famously meticulous with his vast finances, would somehow neglect to write a will. The family quietly gathers together, realizing they all feel the exact same way. They are all on the same page. They know beyond a shadow of a doubt that something very wrong is going on. Acting on these strong instincts, the family immediately contacts the medical examiner's office. They plead with the officials, saying, "Please do a full autopsy on the body, and at the very least, if you are not going to do a full physical exam, please run a comprehensive toxicology screen." Recognizing the family's earnest concern, the medical examiner agrees to halt the rapid cremation process and perform the requested tests. Simultaneously, Detective Moats of the local York County Sheriff's Office is officially notified of the families. Growing suspicions regarding Steve's sudden death, a formal, albeit quiet, inquiry begins. When the initial physical autopsy report finally comes in, it unfortunately seems to confirm the coroner's first guess. It lists minor signs of heart disease and points squarely to death by natural causes. The physical examination still shows that it was highly likely a standard heart attack. However, the true story remains hidden in the blood. The investigators and the family know they have to wait patiently for the toxicologist's chemical report to come back before they can make an actual, final legal finding. It is a grueling process that takes a few agonizing weeks before those crucial scientific results arrive. The family waits on pins and needles, desperate for the objective truth to finally come out, deep down in their hearts. They just know that there is something very wrong with the narrative they have been sold. Chapter 7, The Silent Poison. When the highly anticipated toxicology report on Steve Clayton's blood finally comes back from the state laboratory, the results are nothing short of shocking to the investigators. The chemical analysis reveals distinct traces of several powerful sedatives floating in his system. The list includes marijuana, a strong sleep aid known as temazepam, and high doses of Benadryl. But that is not all. Those drugs alone do not fully explain the tragic outcome. The biggest, most glaring shock in the entire toxicology results is the massive presence of a chemical called tetrahydrozoline, commonly referred to in the medical field by its abbreviation, THZ. Tetrahydrozoline is the primary active ingredient found in standard over-the-counter eye drops, such as the popular brands Visine or Murine. The medical experts explained to the detectives that THZ is absolutely never meant to be ingested. Orally, it is strictly a topical medication for the eyes. If given orally in very small doses, the chemical makes a person feel very ill. It severely irritates the digestive system, making the victim nauseous, dizzy, and eventually causing them to pass out. However, if administered in large, concentrated quantities, it becomes a highly deadly poison. Once absorbed into the bloodstream, it actively attacks and shuts down the central nervous system. Ultimately, it will kill a human being. The detectives quickly learn from consulting toxicologists that a large ingestion of THC severely limits the vital blood supply to major organs, causing massive stress that almost always leads directly to a catastrophic heart attack. This perfectly explains the physical symptoms a coroner found during the initial inspection of the body. Reviewing the case with this new, terrifying lens, the police look back at the original body camera footage taken by Sergeant Day. They meticulously scan the background of the bedroom. There, sitting plainly on the tall wooden dresser, located far away from the bed, they spot a bottle of Visine. It is placed specifically in a spot where a weak, better-than man simply could not get up to reach it himself. With this irrefutable scientific evidence in hand, the reality of the situation becomes crystal clear to law enforcement. This was absolutely not a natural death. Steve Clayton was murdered. Detective Moats knows exactly what his next step must be. He needs to sit down and have a very serious talk with the grieving widow, Lana Clayton. Chapter 8, Unraveling the Truth. Exactly 5 weeks after the sudden, tragic death of her husband, Lana Clayton is formally called in to be questioned by the detectives at the York County Sheriff's office. She sits in a stark interview room, maintaining her quiet, unassuming demeanor. The detectives start gently, framing the conversation as routine. They tell her they simply want to know more about the various medications the lab found in Steve's. Blood. Lana eagerly offers up information, nodding and speaking softly. She says, "You know what he would say? He took Benadryl." She rattles off a long list of minor complaints and over-the-counter pills, but conspicuously, there's absolutely no mention of the eye drops. There is no mention of the THC. The detectives know that the drug that killed Steve is a terrifying weapon. It is completely colorless. It is entirely odorless. It is perfectly tasteless. This grim combination makes it the absolute perfect substance to give to someone secretly if you possess the dark desire to poison them without their knowledge. The chemical level of THC found inside Steve's blood was so astronomically high that it was immediately clear to the scientists that it was a direct cause of his death. It was a completely lethal level, no matter what angle the medical professionals looked at it from. The detectives decide to press on, introducing the chemical evidence into the conversation. They casually mention, somehow or another, there was a very large amount of Izine found in his system. So that is exactly what we are trying to get to the bottom of. Without missing a beat, Lana smoothly replies, "I know he puts the Visine in his morning coffee. He puts it in there every single day." The detective raises an eyebrow, asking, "What do you know about that habit? Why would he do that?" Lana shifts slightly in her chair and says, "What do I know about it? I know it forcefully makes you have diarrhea." At this juncture, there are basically two distinct theories that the police are actively considering. Theory one is that he was purposefully poisoned by someone else, meaning there is direct foul play involved. Theory two is that he somehow ingested the massive amount of chemical on his own, whether it was an intentional act of self-harm or an incredibly tragic, unintentional mistake. To dig deeper into the psychology of the home, the police begin to probe into the reality of Steve and Lana's intimate relationship. They ask her, "How has your life been together truly?" Lana's demeanor shifts from calm to fragile. She sighs and says, "Sometimes we would have a lot of fun in everything, and then sometimes I would just be walking on eggshells. Actually, all the time I was on eggshells." Lana boldly claims to the detectives that the famously generous and jovial Steve secretly possessed a very dark side. She states, "He can be really nasty behind closed doors." The detective asks for clarification. What exactly does nasty Steve look like? Lana replies, "He is really verbally abusive, always calling me terrible names." "Like what would he call you?" the detective presses. "I do not know," Lana says, looking down. "Stupid bitch. I do not know. Just all kinds of highly degrading things. I could see his anger escalating until you just notice. You have to try and stay completely out of his way." After concluding Lana's initial interview, the detectives immediately order a comprehensive search warrant for the massive lakefront house. Teams of investigators descend upon the property. They are intensely looking for any specific cups or drinking glasses that might still hold a chemical residue in them. They are searching for absolutely anything they can find that will help them definitively determine what could have caused this tragic poisoning. They are also looking for anything document-wise, journals, letters, or emails that would definitively show real trouble or a history of abuse in the marriage, as Lana had claimed. But during that exact time, while the house is being meticulously searched, Lana unexpectedly contacts the police station. She tells an officer that she urgently wants to speak once again with Detective Motes. When they sit back down in the interview room, Detective Motes turns on the recording equipment to capture whatever Lana has decided to say. Lana begins nervously. "I told you a little bit about Stephen earlier, but the truth is, it was much worse than what I told you. He was severely verbally and physically abusive." She dramatically mimics him yelling at her, saying, "Lana, for God's sake." She continues, "He would yell at me and call me awful names. His anger just built up. You know, I would do something minor that would irritate him, and it would escalate until the point where he would just completely explode. He would say, 'What are you trying to do, huh?' The detective simply nods, saying, "Okay, go on." Lana takes a deep breath. After he had that initial dizzy incident, which he said was just vertigo, I was taking care of him and everything. But I was still so incredibly angry at him for his abuse. And my girlfriend at work had previously told me a secret. She said, "If you ever want to get even with somebody, just put some Visine in their drink. It will safely cause bad diarrhea." It is at this exact moment that Lana suddenly drops a massive, case-altering bombshell. When I saw that bottle of Visine sitting on the table, Lana confesses quietly, "It just came back to me. The anger. And I just took it and squirted it." The detective leans in, keeping his voice entirely neutral. "And what exactly did you squirt it into?" "Into his drinking water," Lana admits. "So you do not know the full amount you used?" The detective asks. "I mean, you just squeeze a bottle?" Lana shakes her head slightly. "I think I put the entire thing in." "So the whole bottle?" "I think I did. I squeezed it very hard. I just saw it sitting there, and I just did it." The room is silent for a moment as the weight of the confession settles in the air. The detective eventually asks, "What are your specific plans for tonight now?" "Just stay here," Lana replies softly. "You will be okay," the detective says evenly. "I know it is an awful lot on your plate." Lana looks up, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "Just, what if I do? What if I actually cause his death with the Visine?" "Is there anything else that you want to add to the statement?" the detective asks. "If there is more, now is the time to get off your chest." "No," Lana says firmly. "That is it." It is a completely damning confession. However, despite her admitting to poisoning him, the legal process dictates that the detectives cannot simply arrest Lana right then and there. They need to formalize the charges based on the exact medical findings. After Lana confessed, the police allowed her to leave the station. They spent the rest of the day getting their legal ducks in a perfect row, figuring out exactly what specific charges would be presented to a judge. They were completely ready to drive back to the house the very next day to officially arrest Lana, Clayton, for murder. But early that next morning, the police station gets a frantic, unexpected call from one of Lana's neighbors. The neighbor reports that they have found handwritten notes of suicide left at the property. The neighbors are terrified that Lana has already harmed herself. Lana, fully knowing police were coming back the next day and fully aware that they would carry warrants for her arrest, had decided to take a drastic way out. She had intentionally turned the stove gas on in the house, walked upstairs to her bedroom, and swallowed a large handful of powerful pills in a deliberate attempt to kill herself. Emergency medical responders rush to the scene and find her completely unconscious in her bed. She is quickly loaded into an ambulance and taken straight to the local hospital. There, doctors work to flush her system. She is successfully treated and, a few days later, ultimately medically released. The moment she is discharged by the doctors, the waiting police officers immediately place her in handcuffs. She is formally arrested on the severe, unbailable charges of murder and maliciously tampering with food items. The extended Clayton family is promptly informed of Lana's dramatic arrest. A detective from York County dials Nick's number. Nick answers, and the detective says, "Hey, Nick, I just want to bring you completely up to speed here on the case. Lana confessed to poisoning." Hearing those words, Nick is forced to pull his car over the side of the road right away. The horrible truth hits him like a heavy ton of bricks. He later describes the immense shock as feeling literally like taking a solid baseball bat directly to the face. Meanwhile, another call goes out to Rosie. When a family member answers the phone, they can hear Rosie on the other end of the line, screaming in pure agony, cry out over and over, "She killed him! She killed him!" Chapter 9, Justice and Legacy. The legal wheels turn slowly but surely. Nearly 2 years later, on January 16, 2020, Lana Clayton stands before a judge in a crowded courtroom, facing a mountain of irrefutable scientific evidence and her own recorded confession. She officially accepts a plea deal offered by the state prosecutors. She formally admits her guilt on the lesser charges of voluntary manslaughter and the malicious, tampering with a drug or food product. The original, much harsher indictment was for first-degree murder. The judge notes with the court record, "You are pleading guilty to a lesser offense, voluntary manslaughter." During the proceedings, Lana's defense team argues that her own personal knowledge of the chemical was based solely on watching silly comedy movies, believing it would merely cause temporary discomfort and minor diarrhea. Lana vehemently insists to the judge that she never, ever intended for Steve to actually die. She claims she just desperately wanted a petty form of revenge for his alleged daily abuse. But his loyal friends and heartbroken family absolutely do not buy a single word of her claims that Steve was ever an abusive man. They see her courtroom tears as a desperate attempt to assassinate Steve's shining character. Because of her awful accusations, countless other people who knew Steve deeply, including the many young men he had personally mentored and helped finance, proudly came forward to testify to the court. They stood tall to say that he was an exceptionally wonderful, caring person. They swore under oath that there was absolutely no abuse of any sort associated with Stephen Clayton. The family believes Lana was simply trying to do whatever she possibly could to save herself from receiving a very, very, very long sentence behind bars, and to avoid facing the very real possibility of the ultimate penalty. They knew Steve as a remarkably gentle soul, a man completely incapable of physically or emotionally harming anyone he loved. Furthermore, the dedicated prosecutors revealed chilling details based on the final, comprehensive toxicology report. They firmly believe that Steve actively suffered in agonizing pain for 3 entire days before finally passing away. Lana had told the detectives during her confession that she administered the single fatal dose on that Thursday morning. However, the prosecution states forcefully to the court that they know as a matter of absolute, indisputable scientific fact from the lead toxicologist that her timeline is biologically impossible. The doctor explained that Steve would have rapidly died on that very Thursday morning if he had ingested that massive, lethal amount all at once. For him to have been incredibly sick and bedridden all of that time, soaking through his mattress, strongly indicates a much darker reality. It implies that Lana systematically and continually gave him the poison medication in small doses throughout those entire 3 days. She methodically poisoned him with the eye drops little by little, watching him suffer. The prosecutors point out the most horrifying aspect of all. Lana, a highly trained registered nurse who took an oath to heal the sick, never once sought to call for medical help after the initial onset of a severe illness. The family notes that Stephen would never have willingly stayed in a filthy, urine-soaked mattress for days. He was famously a clean freak, a man who appreciated order and hygiene. He absolutely would not have stood for such a degrading thing if he had the power to stop it. The grim reality was that he was simply too physically weak to get up and move. There was no cell phone left in the house for him to reach, as she had hidden it. There was no traditional landline installed, so he could not even drag himself to call a neighbor or an ambulance. The prosecutors argue that this calculated isolation put him in the terrifying situation of being essentially tortured in his own home, with absolutely no possible way to get life-saving help. The theory presented is that finally, when Saturday arrived, Lana knew that the end was near. She then squeezed the remaining contents of the whole bottle of Visine into his drinking water, handed it to him to drink, and then coldly walked out the front door to casually mow the grass. She did this so she would not have to stay in the room and watch the final horror of his agonizing death in the eyes of the family and the law. Instead of acting as a compassionate nurse that helps the afflicted, she acted as a merciless nurse from hell. The judge listens to the harrowing facts and looks down at the 53-year-old woman standing, before the bench, weighing the gravity of the calculated crime against the terms of the accepted plea deal, the judge sentences Lana Clayton to serve 25 hard years in the state prison system. While she formally accepted the punishment, Lana never, not even once, truly admitted that she actually intended to kill Steve. But the cold, hard medical facts powerfully show the world otherwise. For the grieving family, the sentence brings a measure of legal closure, but it does not erase the pain. Nick states plainly that he feels like there is absolutely no penalty dictated by law that would have ever been great enough to truly punish Lana for her actions. He reflects on the horror of the situation, realizing that this was 3 agonizing days of a woman methodically poisoning his best friend, and then finally killing him. He shudders at the dark thought process that had to constantly go into her putting on this elaborate charade of being a caring, worried wife. She actively carried that terrible lie right on through until the very bitter end. To Nick, and to everyone who loves Steve, that level of cold deception is the absolute definition of a monster. Yet, looking back, the detectives and the family realized just how incredibly close Lana actually came to completely getting away with the perfect murder. There almost was not a full autopsy ordered. If the family had not forcefully intervened, if they had not demanded the toxicological screening because of their deep knowledge of Steve's character and habits, the final, official ruling of the local coroner would have permanently stood. The history books would simply record that this death was likely a hard cardiac episode and that it was purely natural causes. The ironic truth of the entire tragedy is that Lana essentially brought this downfall entirely upon herself. If she had just remained the same quiet, gentle, unassuming Lana that the family thought she was, if she had simply played the part of a devastated woman genuinely grieving the tragic loss of her beloved husband, no one would have likely harbored any suspicion whatsoever. If she had not been so incredibly greedy and hasty in throwing out his cherished belongings, stealing his watches, hiding his gold ring, and immediately demanding a cremation while denying the existence of his meticulous will, she might have walked away completely free. Although Lana continuously insists to anyone who will listen that Steve's tragic death was completely unintentional, his smart, loving family and the dedicated prosecution team firmly believe that it was a highly deliberate, calculated act. They believe it was darkly motivated by the oldest reason in the book, pure financial gain. One completely obvious and glaring motive staring the detectives in the face is Steve's vast, accumulated wealth. Without a formally registered will existing in the state of South Carolina, the law dictates that the entirety of a person's estate automatically goes directly to the surviving spouse. Therefore, Lana would absolutely know that if Steve is permanently gone, she instantly gets to keep everything he spent a lifetime building. The investigators point out that if somebody wanted to do something as malicious and greedy as this, all they technically had to do was secretly get rid of the physical copy of the will, and by default, millions of dollars and a beautiful lakefront estate suddenly belonged solely to them. With the trial finally over and the perpetrator locked away behind cold steel bars for the next 25 years, the devastated family must now try their best to slowly move on without Steve's bright light in their daily lives. They gather to watch the old home videos, finding both tears and deep comfort in the glowing pixels. On the television screen, Steve's vibrant face smiles back at them. They hear his booming, joyous voice echoing through the living room speakers, shouting his favorite happy greeting, "Hello, hello, hello." Rosie wipes a tear from her eye, smiling softly at the memory of her older brother, her lifelong protector. She tells her family that while she misses a whole lot of things about Steve, what she truly misses the absolute most is simply hearing the warm, reassuring tone of his voice. She watches the video of his beautiful wedding toast, hearing him say, "This is my way of, getting away from the emotional stuff." Nick agrees, adding that what he deeply misses about Steve is his incredibly over-the-top, magnificent personality. He misses this big, boisterous, highly gregarious character that would happily enter any given room and just completely take over the entire atmosphere with pure joy and boundless generosity. The family wholly agrees that Steve was, without a doubt, an absolutely amazing person. It has been incredibly difficult for all of them navigating the world and celebrating holidays not, having him physically around to guide and entertain them. They all share the sentiment that the one specific thing they miss the absolute most about Steve is his booming, infectious laughter and his undeniable, magical ability to instantly light up a dark room. They recognize a profound tragedy that Stephen was cruelly stolen from everyone who deeply loved him. However, they refuse to let the darkness of his final days overshadow the beautiful brilliance of his 52 years on Earth. They choose to honor him not by dwelling on the betrayal that ended his life, but by actively carrying forward the immense love, the profound generosity, and the joyful spirit he shared with every single person he met. Steve was completely stolen from everyone who loved him, but his magnificent, loving legacy will undoubtedly live on in their hearts forever. The air in Miami on March 10th, 2007, was filled with the kind of golden sunlight that seemed to bless everything it touched. It was a momentous day for the Clayton family, a day of profound love, joyful tears, and deep reflection. Rosemary Clayton, known affectionately to everyone as Rosie, stood in her pristine white dress, her heart fluttering with a mixture of overwhelming happiness and a quiet, lingering sorrow. She was finally marrying the love of her life, William Leslie. Yet the absence of her beloved father, who had passed away just 11 months prior to the wedding, cast a gentle shadow over the festivities. Stepping into the sunlight to guide her was her oldest brother, 52-year-old Steve Clayton. Steve had always been larger than life. When their father and mother were first married, Steve was merely 2 or 3 years old, growing up alongside 4 sisters, with Rosie being the youngest and 10 years his junior. Steve had naturally assumed the role of a protector. He was her hero, an athletic young man who played football and wrestled in high school, possessing a spirit that made him seem invincible to a little girl. Now, as the head of the family, he proudly offered his arm to his baby sister. As the music swelled, Steve leaned in, his eyes bright with unshed tears, and whispered words of encouragement. The guests watched with collective emotion as he walked her down the aisle. When the officiant asked who gave this woman to be married, Steve's voice rang out steady and true, honoring the man who had raised them both. He declared that he did so in the cherished memory of their father. It was a profoundly sentimental moment for everyone gathered, recognizing the beauty of a family standing strong together in the face of loss. Later that evening, the reception transformed into a lively celebration, largely thanks to Steve's irrepressible humor. He had always been the life and soul of any gathering, the first person to stand up and deliver an impromptu toast that came straight from the heart. Tapping his glass, he commanded the room with his signature booming greeting. "Hello, hello, hello." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Steve grinned, his eyes twinkling as he teased their Uncle Max, bringing a wave of light-hearted warmth to the room. Rosie watched him, her heart swelling. Their father had been a more serious man, but Steve had a gift for finding the joy in every moment. As he turned his attention to the newlyweds, his playful demeanor softened into a genuine expression of love. "William, thank you so much. I am not going to look at you right now. This is my way of getting away from the emotional stuff. Thank you so much for making my sister so happy. My dad told me before he passed to take care of my sister to honor you. He loved you very much. I have to get serious here. You guys are great companions. You are great partners. And my sister, I have never seen her happier." The beautiful speeches were followed by the highly anticipated father-daughter dance. Steve stepped onto the floor, taking Rosie in his arms. But before the band could play a single note, the room fell into a reverent hush. A surprise recording of their dearly departed father echoed through the speakers, his warm voice filling the venue. He spoke of his favorite memories, of a young Rosie climbing onto his knee and telling him she loved him. There was not a dry eye in the room. Steve held his sister close, providing the sturdy foundation she needed. He was the best man, the entertainment, the peacemaker, and the comedian. Despite his incredible success in the business world, to Rosie, he was simply the greatest brother anyone could ask for. Chapter 2, Building a Legacy. Steve's journey to success was a testament to his sharp intellect and generous spirit. After high school, he graduated from college with a degree in finance. He was a shrewd, determined businessman who, along with a partner, founded a company called Physical Therapy Resources. What started as a focused endeavor eventually blossomed into a national enterprise, boasting physical therapy centers across the entire country. But Steve was never one to be consumed solely by ambition. He was driven by a specific, audacious goal. He wanted to retire by the age of 40. Through relentless hard work and strategic planning, he sold his interest in the business and retired at 41, missing his target by just a single year. Financial freedom, however, did not mean idleness for Steve Clayton. It simply freed his time to pursue his true passion, giving back to the world. Steve transformed into a dedicated mentor for a large group of young men. He found immense joy in helping them launch their own businesses or discover the true direction they wanted their lives to take. He was extraordinarily generous, freely sharing not only his financial resources, but, more importantly, his time and wisdom, whether it was offering business advice over a cup of coffee or simply listening to a young person's dreams. Steve was a steady, guiding light. Despite his professional triumphs and his vast network of devoted friends and family, Steve's romantic life had experienced its share of turbulence. He possessed a tremendous heart and sought a partner who was as focused, determined, loving, and caring as he was. It was a tall order to fill as he navigated his early 50s. His family often mused that it would take an incredibly special person to sweep him off his feet. He longed for someone with whom he could connect deeply on an emotional, intellectual, and spiritual level. In late 2009, seeking a change of pace and a deeper connection with nature, Steve decided to leave the familiar shores of Florida for the lush landscapes of North Carolina. Steve thrived on physical activity. He loved walking, exploring, and engaging in any outdoor endeavor. North Carolina offered him a beautiful, expansive playground, and it was there, amidst the fresh mountain air and towering trees, that his life took a beautiful, unexpected turn. Within just a few months of his relocation, Steve announced to his family that he had met someone truly special. Rosie noticed a newfound glow radiating from her brother, a brightness that had been missing for quite some time. Her name was Lana Walsh, a Veterans Affairs nurse who had grown up in Oklahoma, 12 years his junior. When Rosie finally met Lana, she noted the stark contrast between the two. Lana appeared very quiet, incredibly sweet and unassuming. She was almost like a wallflower, which stood out brilliantly against Steve's gigantic, boisterous personality. Despite their apparent differences, Steve was absolutely captivated. He referred to her affectionately as his Lana Sue. They were a portrait of affection, constantly walking arm in arm, with Steve always ready to wrap her in a warm hug or plant a joyful kiss on her cheek. Seeing her brother so entirely in love, Rosie embraced Lana with open arms. It was not long before Steve, using his natural charm and convincing nature, persuaded Lana to move to Charlotte to be with him. Their household soon grew with the lively additions of 2 Italian greyhounds. The first was named Guinness, and their love for breed quickly led to the arrival of a second dog, Sadie. With Lana and their spirited pets, Steve had finally found his missing piece. He felt well-grounded and at peace. The successful businessman from Florida had built a whole new, beautiful future in North Carolina. Chapter 3, The House on the Lake. In November 2013, surrounded by loved ones who had traveled across the country to witness their union, Steve and Lana were married. The wedding took place at their charming home in Charlotte. It was a lovely, intimate event, bursting with an undeniable warmth. The love between the couple beamed brightly, creating an atmosphere of pure joy for all who attended. Shortly after exchanging their vows, the couple decided to embark on a new adventure together, relocating just over the border into South Carolina to settle into their forever home. The property was a breathtaking vision, resembling a picture from a pristine postcard. A gorgeous, ocean blue house sat majestically on a beautiful piece of lakefront property on the banks of Lake. Wiley, Steve took immense pride in their new residence. He set about meticulously refurbishing and decorating the space, filling it with his cherished collection of artworks and rare antiques. For Steve, objects held deep personal significance, each unique piece telling a story. The sweeping lake views and expansive grounds allowed the couple to fully indulge in their shared love of nature. If there was a fun, outdoorsy activity to be found, Steve was always the first one in line, bringing his boundless enthusiasm to every adventure. The move to South Carolina also brought them wonderfully close to Steve's extended family. His nephew, Nick French, who was a dedicated police officer, spent a great deal of time with the couple. Nick and his wife frequently joined Steve and Lana for dinners, live concerts, and joyous holiday celebrations. The lake house quickly became a hub of family laughter and shared memories. Moreover, their new home was merely a 30-minute drive from Lana's son and her twin granddaughters. Steve, who had always been a child of heart, adored the little girls. He was a kind of grandfather figure who would happily get down on the floor to play silly games, roaring with laughter as he entertained them, whether he was attempting to demonstrate the limbo, complete with dramatic commentary about bending low under the stick, or enthusiastically playing a chaotic children's game involving a spinning dial and flying whip. Cream, Steve was an absolute teddy bear. The children gravitated toward his warm energy, always hanging on to him with delighted giggles. Lana, too, was always game for the fun, and together they created a home where there was truly never a dull moment. Life at the Clayton household appeared to be thriving. They had built a sanctuary of love, laughter, and family bonds. But the unpredictability of life soon brought an unforeseen challenge to their peaceful existence. Chapter 4, The Sudden Shadow. In June 2018, the bright skies over Lake Wiley seemed to dim when Steve suddenly fell inexplicably ill. A man, known for his robust health and vibrant energy, was suddenly complaining of severe vertigo. He mentioned that his ear ached, he felt terribly nauseous, and he experienced bouts of sickness while working in his beloved garden. As a registered nurse, Lana immediately stepped into care for her husband. She advised him that rest was the best medicine. Steve later recounted to his family that he remembered lying down to rest his head, and when he finally opened his eyes, an astonishing 36 hours had passed. The news deeply worried Rosie. It was incredibly alarming for an active man of his age to lose such a significant block of time. When she called to check on him, Lana calmly assured her that Steve was doing fine, attributing the episode to mere exhaustion and perhaps a touch of sunstroke from his time outdoors. Comforted by the knowledge that a trained medical professional was by his side, Rosie felt reassured. Within 2 weeks, it seemed that the quiet rest had worked miracles. Steve bounced back with his usual flair, throwing a spectacular 4th of July celebration. The party was as magnificent as any they had ever hosted. Steve was his normal, affectionate self, sweeping Lana onto the dance floor, holding her close, and sharing a sweet kiss as their guests cheered them on. Surrounded by friends and family, things seemed perfect. No one in attendance had any reason to doubt that Steve and Lana were destined for a long, blissfully happy future together. Tragically, just weeks later, on July 21st, 2018, a distress call was placed to the York County 911 dispatch. When Sergeant Day and the responding police units arrived at the grand lakefront estate, they were met with a heartbreaking reality. At the base of the home's magnificent staircase lay Steve Clayton. The vibrant, loving patriarch of the family had passed away. Lana was nearby, visibly distraught and weeping softly. Sergeant Day approached Lana gently, needing to understand the circumstances of the tragedy. She explained that Steve had been suffering from intense dizziness and vertigo for several days. She recounted finding him that morning, explaining that he had stood up, become severely dizzy, and collapsed, despite her professional medical training. Lana stated she had been outside mowing the lawn when the final collapse occurred, unable to render aid in time. Panicking, she had rushed out to flag down a passing motorcyclist to call for help. The news shattered the Clayton family. Nick French received a call from his mother while on duty. The words echoed in his mind. Feeling utterly impossible, he rushed to his uncle's home, his mind racing with questions of how and why this had happened to such a strong, vibrant man. When Rosie received the devastating phone call 700 miles away, the shock was unbearable. Initially, the authorities, including the coroner, suspected a natural passing, perhaps a sudden heart incident exacerbated by the reported vertigo and a potential fall. The family gathered, cleaning the house to support a grieving Lana, though they found peculiar details that seemed out of character for the meticulously clean Steve, such as heavily soiled linens in the primary bedroom. Questions began to gently ripple through the family's grief. Steve's phone, an item he was famously never without, had allegedly been missing for days. When discussions about Steve's final wishes arose, the family was shocked to hear Lana claim that there was no will. Steve, a meticulous former accountant and successful businessman, had discussed his estate plans and his desire to be laid to rest in a beautiful cemetery in Fort Lauderdale with his sister many times. The sudden rush to arrange a cremation and a swift memorial service at the house on August 4th left the family feeling profoundly unsettled. At the heartfelt memorial, where guests shared tears and beautiful memories of a life well lived, Rosie noticed that Steve's personal belongings, his clothes, and even his cherished watches and wedding ring had already been cleared away or donated, driven by a need for absolute clarity and justice for the brother who had always protected her. Rosie and the family respectfully requested that the medical examiner conduct a thorough toxicology report. Chapter 5, The Pursuit of Truth. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. Detective Motes of the York County Sheriff's Office was notified of the family's concerns. While the initial autopsy suggested natural causes, the final determination hinged upon the highly anticipated toxicology results. The family waited on pins and needles, trusting in the scientific process to provide the answers they so desperately needed. Weeks later, the comprehensive toxicology report was finalized, and the findings shifted the entire understanding of Steve's passing. The scientific analysis revealed the presence of several substances, but the most significant and shocking discovery was a lethal level of tetrahydrozoline. Tetrahydrozoline is a common active ingredient found in over-the-counter eye drops. It is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless substance that is strictly meant for topical use. Ingested in large, continuous quantities, it profoundly impacts the central nervous system and restricts blood flow, ultimately leading to a catastrophic medical failure. The realization that Steve's passing was not a natural tragedy, but the result of ingestion of a harmful substance, propelled the investigation into a new phase. Detective Motes gently but firmly brought Lana in for questioning. The dialogue was a delicate dance of discovering facts. Through careful and persistent interviewing, the truth of the home dynamic and the events leading up to that fateful July day began to emerge. The investigation revealed a deeply troubling narrative. Lana eventually admitted to introducing the eye drop solution into Steve's drinking water. Her explanations varied, suggesting complex marital difficulties and a misguided desire to cause discomfort, But the undeniable scientific evidence pointed to a prolonged exposure that resulted in Steve's tragic end. It became clear to the investigators and the family that financial motives, particularly the absence of a presentable will which would default the vast estate to the surviving spouse, played a central role in this heartbreaking betrayal. Faced with overwhelming forensic evidence and the diligent work of law enforcement, the legal proceedings commenced. On January 16, 2020, seeking to avoid a prolonged trial, Lana accepted a plea agreement. She admitted guilt to charges of voluntary manslaughter and tampering with a drug or food product. The 53-year-old was subsequently sentenced to 25 years in prison. The justice system had functioned as it was designed to, bringing accountability to a situation shrouded in deception. For the Clayton family, the conclusion of the legal battle offered a sense of closure, though it could never replace the magnificent man they had lost. Chapter 6, An Enduring Legacy. The story of Steve Clayton is not ultimately defined by its tragic conclusion, but by the extraordinary brightness of the life he lived. The justice served was a testament to the family's unwavering love and their dedication to truth, but it is Steve's immense heart that remains his true legacy. In the quiet moments, when the sun sets over the calm waters of Lake Wylie, the family gathers to remember him not with sorrow, but with profound gratitude. They choose to focus on the man who was a pillar of strength, a generous mentor, and a loving brother. They remember the brilliant businessman who achieved his dreams and then immediately turned around to pull others up the ladder of success behind him. They remember the devoted uncle who would happily cast aside his dignity to play a silly game on the living room floor just to hear the joyous laughter of children. Most of all, Rosie remembers the brother who stood in for their father, offering his arm and his steady heart on the most important day of her life. She misses his over-the-top personality, the boisterous, gregarious character that could enter a room and instantly fill it with warmth and joy. His voice still echoes in their cherished memories, calling out a cheerful greeting to everyone he met. Hello, hello, hello. Steve Clayton was stolen from those who loved him, but the lessons he taught about generosity, the importance of family, and the courage to find joy in every single day can never be diminished. His life remains a powerful educational testament to the enduring strength of love, reminding everyone who knew him to live fully, to laugh loudly, and to care deeply for one another. This is a story of a successful and generous businessman who met a nurse with a heart seemingly as big as his own. He struck her as being very loud and vibrant, while she appeared quiet, sweet, and nice. He fell head over heels, unable to hide the profound feelings he had for her. He was very much in love, but when a mysterious sickness consumed their marriage, his family knew that something was very wrong. Money offered no protection, and it soon became clear that this was not a natural departure. The tale truly begins on a bright day, March 10, 2007, in the sunny city of Miami. It was a monumental day for the bride, Rosemary Clayton, known to everyone as Rosie, and her entire family. She was finally marrying her great love, William Leslie. Walking her proudly down the aisle was her oldest brother, 52-year-old Steve Clayton. Just 11 months prior to the wedding, the family had lost their beloved father. Rosie had asked her brother if he would step in. Of course, there were a lot of tears, but she could not imagine anybody else standing in place of their dad. When the minister asked who gave the woman to be married, Steve answered with a strong, unwavering voice, stating that he did so in the cherished memory of their father. It was a deeply sentimental moment for everyone gathered at such a special event where their father could not be present. With their father having passed, Steve had naturally become the head of the family. Even though he had never had children of his own, he was always a father figure to his siblings. When their mother and father were first married, Steve was just about 2 or 3 years old. He grew up with 4 sisters, with Rosie being the youngest. He was 10 years older than her. So there really was not a single moment in Rosie's life when Steve was not there. Steve was her big brother, and he was her absolute hero. He represented everything a little girl would want in a sibling. He played football and wrestled in high school, which made him seem larger than life. After high school, Steve graduated from college with a degree in finance. He quickly matured into a shrewd, brilliant businessman. Along with a partner, Steve started a company called Physical Therapy Resources. That small venture eventually blossomed into a massive national company with physical therapy. Centers located all over the country. He had met his business partner while they were both recovering in the same hospital. Striking up a friendship that led to an empire, he was highly successful and eventually sold his interest in the business. From that point onward, he was effectively retired. His lifelong goal had been to retire at the age of 40. He missed it by just 1 year, officially retiring when he was 41. Selling his business freed Steve to do whatever his heart desired. Above all else, he wanted to give back to the world. He mentored a large group of young men, helping them start their own businesses, or guiding them to find out what direction they wanted, their lives to take. Steve was extremely generous, not only with his financial resources, but with his precious time. He always made time for his family. At Rosie's wedding, Steve's good humor made him a life and soul the occasion. During the reception, he was the first man to stand up and give a toast. He started with a booming, cheerful greeting that made everyone smile. His speech was entirely ad-libbed, spoken straight from his generous heart. He joked that using humor was his way of avoiding the heavy emotional weight of the day. But then he turned to William and thanked him sincerely for making his sister so incredibly happy. Steve was never one to hide his emotions. He shared that before their father passed, he had asked Steve to take care of his sister. After the heartfelt speeches, Steve stepped up for the traditional father and daughter dance. Before the music even started, they shared a very powerful moment. A surprise recording of their dearly departed father echoed through the hall, expressing his deep love and missing the days when Rosie was just a little girl climbing on his knee. Steve held his sister as they wept and smiled. He wore many hats that day. He was a father figure, the best man, the main entertainment, the peacekeeper, and the one who kept everyone laughing. He was a natural at bringing joy to others. Chapter 2, A New Chapter. Despite his immense success and his close network of family and friends, Steve's own romantic life had been somewhat rocky. He was always searching for a partner who was as focused, determined, loving, and caring as he was. That was a remarkably tall order to fill. At 52, his family figure would take a very special person to sweep him off his feet. He was looking for someone he could connect with emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. 3 years later, it seemed that exact miracle occurred. In late 2009, Steve decided to leave his home state of Florida for a change of pace in North Carolina. He loved physical activities, enjoyed walking, and adored anything to do with the great outdoors. Moving from South Florida to North Carolina gave him the opportunity to be outside much more often. Within just a few months of relocating, Steve joyfully announced that he had met someone special. His family noted that he had a vibrant glow about him that had been missing for a while. He was bursting with excitement. Her name was Lana Walsh. She was 12 years his junior, a dedicated nurse who had grown up in Oklahoma. To Steve's family, she struck them as being very sweet and quiet. Her quiet nature stood out specifically because Steve was never quiet. His personality was gigantic and filled every room, while she was more of a wallflower. Despite their apparent differences, Steve was absolutely sure she was the one. They were highly affectionate with each other, constantly walking arm in arm. Steve was always hugging her and kissing her forehead. His family was just happy to see him happy. Any person that Steve loved, they were ready to embrace with open arms. It was not long before Steve asked Lana to move in with him. After they got to know each other quite a bit more, he persuaded her to join him in Charlotte. Steve could be exceptionally convincing when he wanted something. Soon, they added new additions to their growing family. The first dog they adopted was an Italian greyhound named Guinness. They fell in love with the breed and soon decided they wanted another, bringing home a sweet dog named Sadie. With Lana, Steve finally felt he found his missing puzzle piece. He always spoke highly of her, affectionately referring to her as his Lana Sue. He could not hide the deep love he held for her. His family felt that Steve had found himself well-grounded and at peace. He had moved to North Carolina for a change from his old life and had found a whole new, beautiful future. Chapter 3, The Dream Home. When Steve danced with his sister at her wedding, he had dreamed of finding his own special someone. 6 years later, he was ready to marry the love of his life, the Compassionate Veterans Affairs nurse, Lana. It was a lovely, crisp day in November 2013. Many family members traveled to North Carolina just to be there and share the joyous occasion. The wedding took place at their house in Charlotte. It was a remarkably beautiful event, with love simply beaming from both the bride and the groom. Soon after tying the knot, the couple decided to relocate and move into what they considered their forever home. They moved just over the border into South Carolina, settling on the serene banks of Lake Wylie. The house looked like something straight out of a beautiful postcard, a gorgeous ocean blue home sitting on a prime piece of lakefront property. The couple enthusiastically set about refurbishing their new home, decorating the spacious rooms with Steve's extensive collection of artworks and rare antiques. Steve was the kind of person who attached deep personal meaning to his objects, and he was very proud of his unique possessions. The move also allowed the couple to fully indulge in their shared love of nature. If there was something fun and outdoors to do, Steve was always the first one in line, completely eager to participate. Their relocation to South Carolina also meant the pair were much closer to Steve's extended family. His nephew, Nick French, who had married into the family in 2010, spent a lot of time with them. They frequently went out to dinner, attended lively concerts, and celebrated special events during every holiday. They were also just a short 30-minute drive from Lana's son and her twin granddaughters, and the couple never declined an opportunity to babysit. Steve had a wonderful way with children because he was truly a child at heart himself. He would happily get down on the floor to play games and entertain the little ones. With the children around, there was never a single dull moment in the Clayton household. Lana would often film Steve attempting silly dances, laughing as the twins watched in amusement while eating their ice cream. Steve enjoyed playing all kinds of games, from Scrabble to silly plastic children's toys, always proving to be a huge, lovable teddy bear. 5 happy years into their marriage, Steve and Lana appear to be absolutely thriving. Chapter 4, The Shadow of Illness. The brightness of their life took an unexpected turn in June 2018. Steve suddenly fell ill. He complained of feeling extremely dizzy, citing severe vertigo. He mentioned that his ear hurt, and he felt a profound wave of nausea. He became physically sick out in the beautiful yard he loved to tend. Lana, using her background as a nurse, believed the best remedy for Steve was strict bed rest. He remembered lying down in his bedroom, and the next time he opened his eyes, a full 36 hours had passed. Deeply worried, Rosie called Lana to see if she could explain Steve's sudden, mysterious illness. It was highly unusual for any healthy person to simply lose 36 hours of time. Lana assured Rosie that he was fine, that she was keeping a close watch on him, and making sure he was safe. Although he had never been ill like this before, Lana theorized that Steve was simply exhausted from his high-energy lifestyle. Rosie felt reassured knowing that Lana, with her professional medical knowledge, was there to take care of him. Just 2 weeks later, it appeared that the rest had worked perfectly. Steve was back to his old, vibrant self, eagerly throwing a massive party for 4th of July. That celebration was just as incredible as every other gathering they had hosted. Steve was his normal, affectionate self, and everybody had a fantastic time. He danced joyfully with Lana, pulling her close, and the guests watched as they hugged and kissed. looking completely in love. Things seemed wonderful at the Clayton home, and no one doubted that their lives would continue to be happy and long. Chapter 5. The Sudden Farewell. On July 21st, 2018, an urgent call came into the York County Emergency Dispatch Center. Police units quickly arrived on the scene. Body camera footage recorded by the responding officer, Sergeant Day, captured a heartbreaking discovery. Just inside the grand front door, at the very bottom of the beautiful wooden staircase, lay Steve Clayton. Tragically, he had passed away. The officer spoke in hushed, respectful whispers because Lana Clayton was just around the corner, weeping and seemingly distraught. They did not want to say anything that might disturb the grieving widow further. Sergeant Day gently approached Lana to find out what had transpired. Lana explained that Steve had been suffering from dizziness for 2 days. She claimed she had found him that morning when he stood up, became very dizzy, and collapsed. She told the officer she'd been outside briefly to mow the lawn, and upon returning, found him on the floor. She wept, expressing sorrow that despite her nursing training, she was unable to render any aid. She had run outside to wave down a passing motorcyclist to call for emergency services. Steve's nephew, Nick French, was on duty as a police officer when he received the devastating news from his mother. He drove to the house in utter disbelief, his mind racing with questions of how and why this could happen to a man so full of life. When Rosie received the call 700 miles away, she screamed in denial. The family immediately rallied around Lana, feeling deep empathy for the trauma of finding her husband in such a state. Lana suggested that Steve's severe vertigo must have caused him to tumble down the stairs. Sergeant Day carefully checked the scene for any signs of an altercation. It initially looked like a tragic natural death, but procedure required a thorough check. Walking up the stairs, the officer noted no signs of a struggle. However, the coroner noted that Steve lacked the bruising or contusions typical of a violent fall down a flight of stairs. It appeared he had made it to the bottom of the stairs and then simply collapsed. The coroner initially suspected a heart attack based on the coloration of his chest. While Lana digested the terrible news, Nick and his family helped clean the house to make it comfortable for her, but they were shocked by what they found in the master bedroom upstairs. There was an overwhelming smell, and they discovered massive stains on the mattress indicating Steve had been incredibly ill and unable to leave the bed for days. The mattress was so heavy they could barely carry out of the house. When Rosie spoke with Lana later that evening and asked why no one was called when Steve was so sick, Lana claimed he had been starting to feel better. She also mentioned Steve had misplaced a cell phone a week earlier, which struck Rosie as incredibly odd, as Steve was a businessman who was never without his phone. The family began to feel a deep, unsettling suspicion. When Rosie inquired about Steve's last will and testament, Lana claimed there was none, and that she had already made arrangements for him to be cremated. This defied all logic for a meticulous financial accountant like Steve. He had discussed his burial wishes with Rosie many times, wanting to rest in a specific, beautiful cemetery in Fort Lauderdale. The family knew they had to act. They contacted the medical examiner's office and begged for a full autopsy and toxicology report before any cremation could take place. Detective Motes of the York County Sheriff's Office was also notified of the family's growing concerns. Chapter 6. The Quest for Truth. The initial autopsy report suggested signs of heart disease, pointing toward natural passing. However, the true story lay in the blood. When the toxicology report finally returned weeks later, the results were entirely shocking. It showed traces of several sedatives, but the most alarming discovery was a massive, lethal amount of tetrahydrozoline, commonly known as the active ingredient in over-the-counter eye drops. Medical experts explain that while eye drops are harmless when used correctly, ingesting the liquid is incredibly dangerous. In small amounts, it causes severe nausea and dizziness. In the massive quantities found in Steve's system, it acts as a lethal poison. shutting down the central nervous system and restricting blood flow to vital organs, ultimately mimicking a heart attack. The investigation completely shifted. This was no longer a tragic accident. It was a clear case of unnatural death. Detective Moats brought Lana in for questioning. During the interview, Lana listed various medications Steve took, deliberately omitting any mention of the eye drops. The poison used was colorless, odorless, and tasteless, making it a sinister weapon. Detectives pressed Lana about the immense amount of eye drop fluid found in Steve's blood. Lana attempted to pivot, claiming Steve had a hidden dark side and was verbally abusive, a claim that deeply shocked his friends and family, who knew him only as a gentle, generous soul. She eventually asked to speak with Detective Moats again. In a stunning confession, she admitted to squeezing an entire bottle of eye drops into Steve's drinking water. She claimed she only meant to make him mildly ill as revenge for an argument, not to end his life. Chapter 7, Justice and Legacy. Before she could be formally arrested the following day, Lana attempted to take her own life by turning on the gas and taking pills. Unable to face the reality of her actions, she was found unconscious, treated at the local hospital, and upon her release, immediately arrested and charged. On January 16, 2020, Lana accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt to charges of voluntary manslaughter and tampering with a food product. Prosecutors outlined a harrowing timeline based on the scientific evidence. Steve had not been poisoned just once. The levels in his system indicated he had been methodically given the substance over a period of 3 days while trapped in his bed without his phone, entirely isolated from the family who loved him. Despite her claims of it being an accident, the prosecution argued the motive was clearly financial, as South Carolina law dictated that without a will, the surviving spouse inherited everything. Lana was rightfully sentenced to 25 years in prison. While the betrayal was profound, the family refused to let the darkness of his final days overshadow the brilliant light of his 52 years of life. They gathered together to remember the man who had been their rock. They missed his booming voice, his grand ad-libbed speeches, and his over-the-top personality that could fill any room with warmth and laughter. Steve was a man who mentored the youth, cherished his siblings, and danced with unbridled joy at weddings and family gatherings. Although he was tragically stolen from everyone who loved him, his legacy of boundless generosity, enduring humor, and profound love remained forever etched in the hearts of his family. They moved forward, guided by the memory of the hero who had always taught them to celebrate a life well lived. The sun shone brilliantly over Miami on the 10th of March, 2007, casting a golden glow over a day destined for beautiful memories. It was a momentous occasion for the bride, Rosemary Clayton, and her entire extended family. She was finally marrying the love of her life, William Leslie. Yet, amid the joy and the floral arrangements, a bittersweet undercurrent flowed through the gathering. Just 11 months prior to this spectacular wedding, the Clayton family had suffered a profound loss of their patriarch. In the absence of their father, Rosemary knew exactly who she needed by her side. She turned to her oldest brother, 52-year-old Stephen Clayton. Stephen accepted the honor with a heart full of pride and eyes brimming with unshed tears. He had never had children of his own, but throughout his life, he had naturally adopted the role of a father figure to his younger siblings. When their parents had first married, Stephen was just a toddler, barely 2 or 3 years old. Over the years, the family grew to include 4 sisters, with Rosemary being the youngest. Because Stephen was 10 years older than her, there had never been a moment in Rosemary's life where her big brother was not a guiding, protective presence. To Rosemary, Stephen was not just a sibling. He was a hero. He embodied everything a little girl could possibly admire in an older brother. During his high school years, he played football and wrestled, throwing himself into athletics with a passion that made him seem larger than life. When the minister at the altar asked who gave this woman to be married to this man, Stephen stood tall, his voice steady and resonant, and replied that he did. In the loving memory of their father, it was a deeply sentimental moment, bringing the family together to celebrate a beautiful union while honoring the spirit of the man who could not be there in person. As the evening progressed into the reception, Stephen's natural charisma took center stage. He possessed a wonderful sense of humor, a stark contrast to their father, who had always been a much more serious man. Stephen was the life and soul of any gathering, always the first person to stand up and offer a heartfelt toast. Holding his glass high, he addressed the room with his signature greeting. "Hello, hello, hello," Stephen began, his warm voice washing over the smiling faces of the guests. He never relied on written notes. Every speech he gave was completely ad-libbed, flowing directly from his generous heart. He joked with his new brother-in-law, thanking William for making his sister so incredibly happy, while playfully refusing to look at him to avoid getting too emotional. "My dad told me before he passed to take care of my sister," Stephen said, his tone shifting into a gentle sincerity, "to honor you, and he loved you very much." He paused, taking a breath to compose himself before returning to his cheerful demeanor, praising the couple as great companions and wonderful partners. He noted with absolute certainty that he had never seen his sister happier. Following the speeches, it was time for the traditional father and daughter dance. Stephen stepped onto the dance floor, holding his sister close. Before the music even began, the family was treated to a breathtaking surprise. A hidden recording of their departed father began to play through the speakers. His voice echoed through the banquet hall, reminiscing about the days when a young Rosemary would climb onto his knee and declare her love for her daddy. There was not a dry eye in the room. Through it all, Stephen was the anchor. He fulfilled so many duties that day. He was a surrogate father, the best man, the chief entertainer, and the comforting presence that kept everyone calm and smiling. Chapter 2. The Generous Heart. The foundation of Stephen Clayton's remarkable personality was built on years of hard work, dedication, and an unwavering desire to uplift those around him. After graduating from high school, Stephen pursued higher education, eventually earning a college degree in finance. His sharp intellect and natural leadership quickly matured him into a highly shrewd and successful businessman. Alongside a trusted partner, Stephen founded a company called Physical Therapy Resources. Through relentless effort and a genuine desire to help people heal, the business flourished, eventually expanding into a massive national enterprise with physical therapy centers located all over the country. His success was monumental, but Stephen remained grounded. He eventually sold his interest in the thriving business, achieving a lifelong dream. His ultimate goal had always been to retire by the age of 40, though he missed that specific target by a mere 12 months. Retiring at the age of 41 was an extraordinary triumph. Financial freedom allowed Stephen to dedicate his life to his true passion, giving back to his community. He became a dedicated mentor to a large group of young men. He spent countless hours helping them start their own businesses, offering sound financial advice, and guiding them as they tried to discover the right direction for their lives. Stephen was exceptionally generous, sharing not only his wealth, but, more importantly, his valuable time. Despite his incredible professional success and his tight-knit network of adoring family and friends, Stephen's romantic life had experienced its share of turbulence. He was a man who loved deeply and sought a partner who matched his focus, determination, and boundless capacity for care. Finding someone to meet such a tall order was no easy task. As he navigated his early 50s, his family genuinely hoped that a very special person would eventually come along and sweep him off his feet. They knew Stephen was searching for a profound connection, someone he could relate to on emotional, intellectual, and spiritual levels. 3 years after Rosemary's beautiful wedding, Stephen's life took an exciting turn. In late 2009, he made the bold decision to leave his home state of Florida. He craved a change of pace and relocated to the picturesque landscapes of North Carolina. Stephen had always possessed a vibrant physical energy. He adored going for long walks and participating in anything that allowed him to be outdoors, breathing in the fresh air. The move provided him with ample opportunities to explore nature and embrace a healthier, more active lifestyle. Within just a few months of settling into his new environment, Stephen joyfully announced to his family that he had met someone special. His relatives noted a brilliance.